Pride is spiritual cancer. It eats up the very possibility of love or contentment or even common sense. So, pride is something that has catastrophic effect on one's life. Dear viewers, in today's presentation, we are going to see the tragic end of pride. The poem that we are going to start is The Rock and the Bubble, written by the American poet Louisa May Alcott. This poem presents a story of a proud bubble and a steadfast rock. Myself, Professor Meshramka Sunitra, Assistant Professor in Department of English, JAT, Arts, Science and Commerce College for Women, Malegaon. So the topic of my presentation is The Rock and the Bubble, a poem written by Louisa May Alcott. In this poem, the poet has described how foolish pride has a catastrophic effect on Bubble's life. The poem is about a rock and a bubble. The rock acts as a symbol of calmness, strength, and steadiness in the face of challenges, whereas the bubble stands for those who are ignorant about their reality. Bubble stands for those people who are boastful. In the poem, the poet has focused the drawbacks of being like a bubble, and she has given a message to follow the path shown by the calm and pleasant rock. Now, we'll focus on the poet. Louisa May Alcott was born on 29th November 1832 at Germantown, Pennsylvania, US. She died on 6th March 1888 at the age of 55 at Boston, Massachusetts. Her pen name is A.M. Brand. She belonged to the period of American Civil War. The notable works by Louisa May Alcott are Little Women, Little Men, Joe's Boys, and Eight Cousins. This poem, The Rock and the Bubble, is the story of a bubble that once came across an immovable rock. The rock is standing firmly near the seashore. It came between the path of the bubble. The bubble is heading towards the shore to dance with the foam and spray of sea water. The bubble arrogantly told the rock to move away. However, the rock was at that place for a long time. Even the great waves and angry winds were not able to move the rock. But the bubble, bubbling in excessive pride, ordered the rock to move from the place. Due to its vain attitude, it jumped right at the rock and broke. The bubble ignored what the waves and seabirds tried to convey. And in this way, due to excessive pride, the bubble lost its life. Now, we'll see the poem. This poem consists of 20 quatrains. Quatrain means a stanza having 4 lines. LOISA में ALCOTT has used ballad rhyme scheme ABCB. It means the second and the fourth lines rhyme with each other. The poem is written in iambic diameter and iambic trimeter. The poet has used several poetic devices such as personification, alliteration, enjambment, irony, and repetition. Now, we'll see these stanzas one by one. Oh, a bare brown rock stood up in the sea, the waves at its feet dancing merrily. Oh. Now here, the poet has used the expression of wonder, oh. It is a rhetorical exclamation. The poet has used this expression in order to depict how the rock stood in the vast sea. The rock appears as a great figure. The rock is unafraid of the ferocious waves, but it has friendly relationship with the waves because the waves are dancing merrily at the feet of the rock. The poet says the rock is bare and brown. It is standing up in the sea and the waves are dancing merrily at the feet of the rock. Second stanza. A little bubble once came sailing by, and thus to the rock did it gaily cry. Now in the next stanza, the poet presents the little sparkling bubble. This bubble came sailing by the waves. The rock was in the middle of its path, so it cheerfully cried out to the rock and asked the rock to move from its path. The bubble's happy mood is reflected. It is reflected through the carefree and merry tone of the bubble. In the third stanza, the poet says, "Ho, clumsy brown stone, quick, make way for me. I am the fairest thing that floats on the sea." Ho. Ho is disrespectful expression. It is disrespectful to tell someone to move away in such manner. The bubble is talking to the stone by using this expression, ho. The bubble is proud and the bubble referred to the rock as clumsy brown stone. Now here, the bubble has used the term clumsy. Clumsy means graceless, awkward. Now here, the bubble wants to give hint to its own beauty. And therefore, using such arrogant tone, the bubble asks the rock to move from its path. And not only this, but the bubble gives reason for telling the rock to make way for the bubble. The bubble says that it is the fairest thing among all the floating things on the sea, and therefore, as the bubble is the fairest thing, the clumsy brown rock must follow its order. Now here, the bubble wants to get respect from the rock. But dear viewers, we know give respect, take respect. In order to get respect from others, one must give respect to others. But the bubble is not aware about it. The bubble's first flaw is to be disrespectful to the rock. And it clearly shows the attitude of the bubble. The bubble says to the rock, "See my rainbow robe, see my crown of light, my glittering form, so airy and bright." Now here, the bubble's boastful nature is reflected. It tells the rock to see the rainbow robe of the bubble. The bubble says, "See my rainbow robe, my crown of light." Dear viewers, when the light gets diffracted from its surface, it is split into 7 colors, and these are the 7 colors of the rainbow. Now, the bubble proudly says, "See my rainbow robe, see my crown of light." So here, the poet has used metaphor. Furthermore, the poet has depicted its glittering form. The form of the bubble is airy and bright. So it describes the looks of the bubble. Now, in the next stanza, the poet says, "Over the waters blue, I am floating away to dance by the shore with the foam and spray." The bubble is saying to the rock, "Over the waters blue, I am floating away to dance by the shore with the foam and spray." Now, here, the bubble talks about its destination. It is floating over the blue waters. It wants to reach the shore. Here, the bubble tells about its will to dance with the foam and the spray. Here, the poet has personified the foam and spray. Foam and spray are the bubble's friend. Furthermore, there is implicit comparison between the bubble and the foam and the spray. The foam and spray are also made of seawater, just like bubble. So, they share the similar characteristics, just like the bubble. Now the bubble stone becomes angry. The bubble says, "Now make way, for the waves are strong, and their rippling feet bear me fast along." Here, the bubble is giving order to the rock. The bubble says, "Make way, make way." Now, here the repetition of the word make way hints towards the bubble's annoyance with the rock. The bubble is angry. The bubble cannot tolerate the idea that the rock is not moving. It is because the excessive pride of the bubble has blinded it. The bubble cannot understand that the rock cannot be moved from the place. The bubble has to make its own way to get past the rock. But due to pride, due to ego, due to arrogance, the bubble cannot understand it. But the great rock stood straight up in the sea. It looked gravely down and said pleasantly. Now here, the rock is standing straight up in the sea, and it looked gravely down and said pleasantly. The poet has used the word great. Here the rock is shown as something great. The poet has focused its size. Though the rock is bare, clumsy, and brown, but it is great. The rock has great heart. The rock is aware about its potential. So, it is standing straight up in the sea. Now, the straight posture of the rock depicts its confidence and strength. Though the bubble ordered angrily to the rock did not reply in angry tone, but it looked down at the bubble with serious look like an elderly person. Furthermore, the rock pleasantly addressed to the bubble, and the rock said, "Little friend, you must go some other way, for I have not stirred this many a long day." Little friend. Here, the rock is addressing to the bubble as a little friend. Now here we can see the difference between the rock and the bubble speak to each other. The bubble addresses the rock in very rude manner, whereas the rock replies in very soft and pleasant tone. The rock addresses to the bubble as little friend and asks the bubble to go some other way. Furthermore, the rock gives the reason to the bubble that it has not moved from its place for a long time. Here, the poet has presented an interesting contrast between the rock and the bubble. The rock is immovable, whereas the bubble is floating on the sea waves. It floats with the flow, and we know that such things do not last long. They just come and go. But the rock is immovable, and here the rock stands for the people who are filled with indomitable courage. They are never moved by any situation. They are not moved by difficulties or problems in their life. Great billows have dashed and angry winds blown, but my sturdy form is not overthrown. The great billows. The rock tells about the great billows. Now here, great billows are used here as a symbol. These great billows symbolize hardships in a man's life. These billows dashed over the rock, but the rock never stirred a bit. Even the angry winds tried to blow the rock away, but the rock remained at its place. It means if a person has a willpower, the person cannot be defeated. Nothing can stir me in the air or sea, then how can I move, little friend, for thee? The rock says in confident manner to the bubble that nothing can stir me in the air or sea, then how can I move, little friend, for thee? Now, the rock is shown as a confident rock. The rock is never moved by air or even by the sea. No doubt, it suffers erosion, but it is not moved. So, the rock asks the bubble in very pleasant manner to make way for itself. The rock says to the bubble that I cannot move. So here it shows the stability of the rock. Then the waves all laughed in their voices sweet, and the seabirds looked from their rocky seat. The waves around the bubble understood the bubble's foolishness. These waves are not arrogant like the bubble. So, they laughed at the folly of the bubble. They laughed at the bubble in their sweet voice. Here, the poet has personified the waves and attributed the human quality of speaking. The waves are speaking in sweet manner. Some seabirds are looking at the scene from their rocky seat. It means these birds have made their nests in the rock, and they are looking at the gay bubble in the way the waves are looking at the bubble. These seabirds and the waves both are watching the scene. The bubble is angry. It is furiated at the rock's behavior. The poet says, at the bubble gay, who angrily cried, while its round and cheek glowed with a foolish pride. The bubble cried out loud in anger. It made its round cheek glow with foolish pride. And we know that excessive pride leads to tragic end. Excessive pride in a person makes a person to do meaningless things. And the same thing is applied to the bubble. The bubble said, you shall move for me, and you shall not mock at the words I say, you ugly, rough rock. Again the bubble ordered to the rock. The bubble said to the rock to move and make way for the bubble. The bubble said, you ugly, rough rock. Now here, this remark has made the waves and seabirds burst out in laughter, and it angered the bubble. And the bubble said to the waves and the seabirds not to mock at its words. The bubble knows very well what it is saying to the rock, and therefore the bubble says to the waves and the birds not to mock the bubble. The bubble cursed the rock for its ugliness and its rough surface. And the bubble asked the waves and the seabird why they are looking at the bubble in such a satirical way. Actually, the waves once helped the bubble to sail through, but due to pride, the bubble has become the enemy of the waves. It rudely tells the waves to stop laughing. Now, the bubble says to the birds, be silent, wild birds. Why stare you so? Stop laughing, rude waves, and help me to go. The bubble is saying in arrogant manner to the seabirds and the waves. The bubble asks them, why are they staring at the bubble? And the bubble orders them to stop laughing. Further, the bubble says, for I am the queen of the ocean here, and this cruel stone cannot make me fear. The bubble says, I am the queen of the ocean. Actually, it is something funny, because a little being like a bubble cannot be the queen of ocean, but the bubble's excessive pride has made it blind. The bubble thinks that it is the queen of the ocean, queen of the sea. Though the rock talked with the bubble in soft and calm tone, the bubble talked in very rude and arrogant manner. Dashing fiercely up with a scornful word, foolish bubble broke, but rock never stirred. This is the end of the bubble. The bubble jumped at the rock without heeding to the consequences, without paying attention to the consequences. The bubble dashed fiercely up with scorn and finally broke. So, the bubble broke, the pride of the bubble broke. Here the poet remarked, but the rock never stirred. It means the rock remained steadfast, but the bubble, being foolish, ended its own life. Then said the sea birds, stirring in their nests, to the little ones leaning on their breasts. The sea birds, who are far from the scene, witnessed all the scene. They saw the foolishness and the tragic end of the bubble. So, now here we find that they are telling their little ones who are leaning on their breasts that not to be like the bubble. The bubble is headstrong. It means the bubble is stubborn, rude, unruly, and vain. So, the sea birds give message to their little ones not to be like the bubble. They say, be not like bubble, headstrong, rude and vain, seeking by violence your object to gain. The seabirds are giving good message to their little ones. The seabirds say, not to be like the bubble, because the bubble tried to get its goal or try to achieve its goal by violence. And the seabirds say, but be like the rock, steadfast, true and strong, yet cheerful and kind and firm against wrong. The seabirds are telling to their young ones that not to be like the bubble, but be like the rock. The young ones should learn from the steadiness, truthfulness, and strength of the rock. The rock cannot be moved by the violent waves or the angry winds. The rock truly tells the bubble the reality, and the calmness of the rock clearly shows its true strength. One can learn the three qualities from the rock, that is, to be steadfast, to be true, and to be strong. Here, the seabirds compare the three qualities of the bubble with the three qualities of the rock, and they tell the little birdlings that they should be like the rock but not like the bubble. They should be wise. Here the seabirds say, "Heed, little birdlings, and wiser you will be for the lesson learned today by the sea." The seabirds tell the little birdlings that they should be wiser because they have learnt a lesson from the sea. They have learnt a lesson from the rock. So they should be steadfast, true, and strong, just like the rock. Now we'll focus on the moral of the poem. The poem teaches that the excessive pride in oneself can have catastrophic effects on one's life because arrogance leads to ignorance, and this ignorance makes one blind to reality. The poet gives message that the rock remains calm and pleasant to the arrogant bubble. Even the waves and the storm could not move it from its place due to its steadfastness and internal strength. So, we too should remain steadfast in spite of difficulties in life. Furthermore, we can learn from the flaws, from the mistakes in Bubble's life. The poem deals with the theme that excessive pride made the bubble ignorant of the actions it took. Here, the poet contrasts the character of the bubble and the rock and tells the readers to be like the rock. Be like the rock, steadfast, true and strong, yet cheerful and kind and firm against wrong. Thank you.